Before you judge me, hear me out. My name is Evelyn Carter, and on my 63rd birthday, I learned that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it shares your last name. That morning, sunlight slipped through the thin curtains of my small home in Springfield, Illinois. I had ironed my best cardigan the night before, brushed my silver hair, and even baked a small chocolate cake. It wasn't much, but I wanted the day to feel special. I told myself maybe this year he'll remember. My son Ethan hadn't visited in weeks. He used to call every Sunday, but lately his voice only existed in voicemails. Rushed, distracted, full of excuses about work, bills, and life being too busy. Still, I believed he'd show up. He always used to love birthdays. I even made pancakes, the kind with blueberries he used to beg for as a child, and set 2 plates on the table just in case. Hours crawled by. The kitchen smelled of syrup and loneliness. By noon, the pancakes were cold, the candles still unlit. I stared at the clock, each tick reminding me how silly hope can be at this age. Then, just as I was about to give up, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there he was, Ethan, my boy, smiling that same rehearsed smile that once melted my heart. In his hand, a bouquet of supermarket lilies, half wilted from the cold. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said softly, brushing past me into the house. I smiled through the ache. "You came?" I whispered. "Of course," he replied, his voice tight. "Go get dressed, we're going out." "Out?" My heart leapt. "Oh, I didn't know we had plans." "Yeah," he said, glancing at his watch. "It's a surprise. You'll love it." I didn't ask where. I didn't want to ruin the moment. I slipped into my coat, the navy one with missing buttons, and my shoes that pinched at the sides. He was already outside by the time I locked the door. The car ride was quiet. He hummed along to some song on the radio while I stared out the window, counting the miles. But when he turned off the main road, my stomach tightened. We weren't going toward the city or any restaurant. Instead, he slowed near a stone building with white fences and an arched sign that read Maple Grove Assisted Living Center. I frowned. "Ethan, what are we doing here?" He cleared his throat, eyes on the steering wheel. "Mom, we need to talk." My fingers gripped my purse. "About what?" He exhaled hard. "You've been forgetting things." "The stove last week, the bills." "I'm fine," I snapped. "Everyone forgets sometimes." He didn't look at me. "It's not safe anymore. This place is comfortable, secure. They'll take care of you." I laughed, a dry, bitter laugh. "You brought me here on my birthday. To leave me?" "It's for your own good," he said quietly. "You'll see." That's when I saw the trunk. Open, my old suitcase sitting neatly inside. Packed. My clothes folded, my family photos tucked in the corner. My throat went dry. "You went through my things?" He didn't answer. He just got out, came around to open my door like it was a courtesy, like he hadn't just broken something sacred. I refused to move. "Ethan, I'm not staying here." "Mom." He sounded tired, like the conversation was a burden. "Please don't make this harder." Inside, the building smelled like disinfectant and overcooked peas. A cheerful woman at reception smiled too brightly, like she'd been warned I was coming. Ethan signed some papers while I stood there frozen. I saw my name on the forms, a power of attorney transfer. My hands trembled. He had already planned everything. When they showed me the room, beige walls, a single bed, a small window facing a brick wall, I felt the world tilt. My birthday gift was isolation. Hours passed. I sat on the bed, coat still on, staring at the lilies now limp in a vase. The laughter from the hallway didn't reach me. I wasn't angry yet, just numb. That night, I lay awake, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound. My mind ran through every memory, every scraped knee I'd bandaged, every meal I'd cooked, every sacrifice I'd made. All for a son who saw me now as an inconvenience to be managed. I whispered into the dark. "You may have signed those papers, Ethan, but you don't own me." And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, defiance. The first morning in Maple Grove felt like waking up inside someone else's dream, one where the colors were too dull, the air too clean, and nothing truly belonged to me. The walls were the color of stale oatmeal. The sheets smelled of bleach. Every sound echoed. The squeak of rubber soles, the distant clatter of breakfast trays, the laughter of nurses trying to sound cheerful. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to remember when my life had stopped being mine. When the nurse came in, She was young, maybe in her 20s, with freckles scattered across her nose and a name tag that read Clara. Her smile was kind, but her tone was careful, the kind people use when speaking to someone fragile. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter. Time for your meds." "I don't take any," I said flatly. She blinked. "Oh, right, must be a mix-up. Happens sometimes." She set the small plastic cup on my table anyway, next to a pitcher of water. "If you need anything, just press that red button." I stared at the button after she left. Small, bright, and useless. At lunch, I met my roommate, Nora, a woman with silver hair that fell in loose curls and a voice that trembled when she spoke. "You're new," she said without looking up from her crossword puzzle. "Yesterday," I replied. She nodded, slow and deliberate. "They all come here thinking it's temporary. You'll see." Her words clung to me like fog. The days blurred together. Breakfast at 7, medication rounds at 9, TV time at noon. Everything was orderly, quiet, predictable. The kind of quiet that smothers you. Every time I asked to call Ethan, they said the same thing. "Your son took care of it. Said it's better if we handle your communication for now." Better for who? By the third day, I realized what this place really was. It's not a care home, but a cage. I wasn't being looked after. I was being managed, documented, and gently erased. That night, when the hallway lights dimmed and the world outside turned dark, I whispered to myself, "I'm not done yet." The next morning, something changed. I met Lena. She wasn't supposed to be on shift. I overheard her mention that she was covering for someone sick. She was younger than Clara, but there was something old in her eyes, a mix of compassion and quiet rebellion. She came in with her tablet, checking vitals and notes. Then she paused, studying me. "You don't look like you belong here," she said softly. I raised an eyebrow. "And what does that mean?" "Most people here, they've stopped asking questions." "You haven't." For the first time in days, I smiled. "Maybe I just don't know when to quit," she grinned back. And for a fleeting second, I felt seen. Later that afternoon, while refilling my water jug, she slipped something onto my tray, a folded newspaper clipping. "Read this when you're alone," she whispered. When I opened it that night, my hands shook. It was an old lottery result from 2 weeks prior. A small note scribbled on the side read, "Belonged to a resident who passed away." No one claimed it, and tucked behind it, a lottery ticket. Numbers faintly faded, dated exactly 2 weeks earlier. I laughed softly. "You think luck's on my side?" But Lena just winked. Sometimes life gives you one last card to play. Hours later, curiosity got the better of me. I crept to the computer room where the old desktop whirred like an aging beast. My fingers trembled as I typed the numbers into the lottery website. The result flashed in bold letters. Winning numbers. Match found. Prize, $5 million. For a long moment, I just stared. I thought I was hallucinating. Then I read it again, slower this time. It was real. My breath hitched, not joy. Not relief. Fear if Ethan found out. If anyone did. I quickly printed the confirmation, folded the paper small, and hid it beneath the lining of my pillowcase. My heart pounded so hard I thought the sound would wake the whole ward. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept picturing Ethan's calm, manipulative face as he signed those papers. The same face that had once smiled through birthday candles and whispered, "I love you, Mom." Now I knew what love meant to him. Ownership. But things had changed. I wasn't helpless anymore. Somewhere between betrayal and survival, I had found my weapon. And as I lay there in the dim light of Maple Grove, clutching the secret I'd stumbled upon by pure chance, I made myself a promise. He took my freedom once. He would never take it again. I didn't touch breakfast the next morning. My hands still trembled from what I'd seen on that glowing computer screen. $5 million. Me, a forgotten woman in a nursing home. Lena came by during her rounds. Her eyes flicked toward my untouched tray, then back to me. "You saw it, didn't you?" she whispered. I nodded. "It's real." "Then you can't stay here," she said under her breath. "Not with people who think you're helpless." Her words settled like a spark in my chest. I wasn't helpless. I was trapped, and there's a difference. That day, I pretended to play along. I smiled when nurses called me sweetheart, nodded when they adjusted my bed, and thanked them for meals I didn't eat. All the while, I planned. Lena met me again that night. She carried a clipboard in one hand, a folded envelope in the other. "There's someone you need to meet," she said. "A friend of my uncle's. He helps residents with complicated legal issues." Quietly, I frowned. Legal issues? Let's just say he's good at making people disappear on paper. The next afternoon he came, a tall man in his early 30s with kind eyes and an old leather briefcase. His name was Andrew Wells. He introduced himself as a volunteer attorney, one of those who visit the facility monthly. But when Lena left the room and the door clicked shut, his tone changed. "I understand you want a clean slate, Mrs. Carter," he said calmly. "That's possible, but it'll take precision." I pulled the folded lottery confirmation from under my pillow. My voice trembled as I spoke. "This is my chance. But if my son finds out—" "He won't," Andrew interrupted. "Not if we move fast." The next few hours were a blur of whispered instructions and paperwork. Andrew drafted new documents, a living trust, a new account, even a temporary identity linked to a charity foundation. He made me sign in neat, careful strokes. Each signature felt like a small resurrection. Lena guarded the door while we worked. "You'll need to leave before sunrise," she murmured. "Once the morning shift starts, you'll be reported missing." I packed only what mattered: a few photos, my late husband's watch, and the paper that had changed everything. When I looked around the beige room one last time, I felt nothing. This wasn't home. It never had been. At 4:30 a.m., Lena met me by the laundry exit. The corridor smelled of detergent and freedom. She handed me a duffel bag with clean clothes and a prepaid phone. "I don't know how to thank you," I whispered. She smiled. "Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Don't disappear completely. Someone needs to hear your story one day." I nodded, fighting back tears. "Maybe someday." Outside, the sky was just beginning to pale. A soft drizzle coated the parking lot, making the asphalt shimmer under the streetlights. Andrew was waiting in an old sedan, engine running. As we drove away from Maple Grove, I didn't look back. I expected to feel triumphant, but instead I felt hollow, like a ghost escaping its own grave. We crossed the state line by mid-morning. Andrew spoke only when necessary, explaining how the trust would shield the winnings and how the new address, a small house in rural Missouri, would be in my alias, Margaret Lane. "Lay low," he said. "Don't contact anyone, not even your son, especially not him." I stared out the window at endless fields rolling past. "He already thinks I'm losing my mind." "Let him," Andrew glanced at me. "Then he's underestimated you." We reached the house just before dusk. It was modest, brick walls, chipped paint, a creaking porch, but it was mine. The first space I'd owned since my old life was stolen. Inside, there was nothing but dust, a couch, and silence. It was perfect. Andrew handed me a folder. "This contains everything. Your new name, your bank details, legal cover, and the trust papers. Keep them safe." As he left, he paused at the door. "You've been through hell, Mrs. Carter, but you made it out. That counts for something." When the car disappeared down the dirt road, I sank onto the couch and let out a shaky breath. The quiet pressed around me, but it didn't feel suffocating anymore. It felt earned. That night, I made myself tea and stared out the window at the flickering porch light. I wasn't Evelyn Carter, the abandoned mother. I was Margaret Lane, a woman who had died and been reborn in the same lifetime. I opened the envelope again and looked at the confirmation printout. The numbers stared back at me, proof that fate had given me one final hand to play, and for the first time I smiled. Not out of happiness, but out of something fiercer: control. For the first few days in Missouri, I lived like a shadow. No calls, no neighbors, no trace. The little brick house creaked with every breath of wind. The mailbox leaned sideways, the floorboards sighed beneath my feet. And yet, for the first time in months, I could breathe without asking permission. I learned the rhythm of solitude. Tea at sunrise, walks to the mailbox, a book by the fire at night. I told myself this peace was enough, but peace built on fear is only a pause, not freedom. One morning, a knock shattered that fragile calm. My heart leapt. No one should have known I was here. I moved quietly to the window, peeking through the curtains. A delivery van sat in the dirt driveway, groceries just as Andrew had arranged. I laughed softly at my own paranoia. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night, I dreamed of Ethan. his voice echoing down the Maple Grove hallway. "It's for your own good, Mom." Over and over, like a prayer warped by guilt. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the old laptop Andrew had left and searched my name. My old name, Evelyn Carter, missing person report. There it was. A smiling picture of me from years ago, Ethan's arm around my shoulders. The caption, "Son pleads for information after elderly mother vanishes from care facility." There were hundreds of comments. "Praying for you." She must be so scared. What a wonderful son searching for her like that. I wanted to scream, but what broke me wasn't the article. It was a single photo near the bottom, a shot of my old house, door sealed with police tape. The caption read, "Authorities suspect foul play, but son denies any involvement." I sat back, trembling. This wasn't just a story anymore, it was a performance. And Ethan was the star. Over the following week, I couldn't stop digging. Old financial emails, bank records, insurance files, pieces of my past Andrew had salvaged when he helped me disappear. At first, I was just trying to reassure myself that my life still existed somewhere on paper. Then I saw it. A transaction history dated years back. Loans, signatures, investments I never made. All in my name, the handwriting. Almost perfect, but too precise. The way my G curved, the loop on my R, identical but mechanical, my breath went cold. Ethan had been forging my signature long before he locked me away. I spent hours combing through records. A business loan from 2012, a credit line under my husband's old catering company, one we'd closed decades ago. Every document tied back to Ethan's address. Each discovery was another knife twisting in my chest. He hadn't just betrayed me, he'd used me. For years. By evening, my living room looked like an evidence board. Papers spread across the floor, dates circled in red pen, connections forming like spider webs. I called Andrew using the burner phone. He answered on the first ring. "It's worse than I thought," I said, my voice shaking. "He didn't just take my power of attorney. He's been using my name for years. Forgery and fraud. Maybe more." He went quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you want to press charges?" "Not yet. Why not?" "Because I want him to feel it first, the fear, the silence." The not knowing, Andrew hesitated. "Then you'd better move carefully, Mrs. Lane. If he's done this much, he won't stop at paper." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made my pulse spike. I thought I saw headlights flash across the window once. But when I looked, there was nothing but rain. Still, something in me had changed. The woman who once begged for her son's love was gone. In her place stood someone colder, sharper, someone who knew how to hunt quietly. The next morning, I began gathering proof, scanned documents, old bank forms, even my phone bill from the month Ethan put me away. Every small detail was a weapon now. For 3 days, I worked like a detective in exile. I cataloged, printed, labeled. When the folder was full, I locked it inside the same fireproof box that held the lottery confirmation, the box under the loose floorboard in the hallway. That night, the wind howled outside. I sat by the window, watching it bend the trees, and thought about all the ways a person could vanish. I had disappeared once, but maybe it was time for him to vanish. I wasn't going to run anymore. I was going to make Ethan Carter face the one thing he'd never planned for, a mother who refused to stay quiet. The envelope was small, unmarked, untraceable, but it carried the weight of everything I'd lost. Inside were photocopies of loan papers, forged signatures, and bank statements linking Ethan to years of theft. I mailed it anonymously to the Federal Financial Crimes Unit. No name, no return address, just one line on the note inside. "If anything happens to me, this will not be the only copy." For days, I heard nothing. I went about my quiet routine, sweeping, cooking, pretending I wasn't waiting for the sound of sirens or a knock on my door. But something felt different, like the world had started spinning in reverse. Then, one morning, I opened my mailbox and froze. A single white envelope. No stamp, no address. Just my old handwriting. My pulse raced as I tore it open. Inside, a short note. "I know what you did. This isn't over. No name, but I didn't need one. I knew that writing, the slanted letters, the sharp G's. Ethan had found me." That night, the lights in my living room flickered as the wind howled outside. I checked every lock twice, every curtain edge. My breath fogged in the cold air, and still, I felt watched. But fear didn't paralyze me anymore. It sharpened me. I sat at the table, opened my laptop, and began typing. My story, every ugly truth of it. Not for sympathy, not for revenge, but for proof. If anything happened to me, I wanted my voice to live where his lies couldn't reach. The next morning, my burner phone buzzed. A private number. Mrs. Lane? The voice was low, calm. Andrews. They called me, he said. The DOJ. They got your envelope. My hand tightened around the phone. And? They're opening an inquiry into financial misconduct. Quietly, for now. So he's not arrested? Not yet, he said. But they're watching him. That was enough for now. I wanted him to feel it. The unease of being hunted. 2 days later, my story hit the news. Not by name, but by implication. A feature about elder financial abuse. Anonymous victim testimony. I hadn't sent it. Andrew hadn't either. Which meant someone at the DOJ had. The article described a mother deceived by her son through forged documents and forced institutionalization. The headline read, "Silenced but not broken." By evening, the story had spread. Online comments turned. Something's off about that son. How could anyone do that to their mother? Where is she now? The internet for once was on my side. Ethan tried to fight back. His social media posts became frantic. Interviews, statements, teary pleas about his missing mother, and mental health struggles. But it was too late. The cracks had started to show. I watched it all unfold from my quiet Missouri home. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. It was more like justice crawling its way through the mud. Then Andrew called again. "He's panicking," he said. "A petition's been filed in Ohio. He's trying to declare you mentally incompetent." My breath caught. "He's still doing it?" "He's desperate," Andrew said. "He wants control back. But this time, you're not alone. We spent hours building my defense, compiling psychiatric reports, medical records, even proof of lucid correspondence with Andrew and Lena. I agreed to return to Ohio for the hearing, quietly, legally, safely. As I packed, I found the photo that had once sat on my old dresser, me and Ethan, my arm around him, both of us laughing. I'd taken it years ago, back when love blinded me to everything else. I tore the photo in half and slipped my own side into my wallet. The other half, his, went into the fire. When I arrived at the courthouse 2 weeks later, the air smelled like rain and old stone. My heels echoed against the tiled floor. As I walked past reporters holding microphones, calling Ethan's name, not mine. He was already there, crisp suit, hollow smile, the perfect son. His lawyer stood beside him like a shadow. When our eyes met, he froze. I saw it. Not guilt, not grief. Fear. He hadn't expected me to show up alive. Inside, the courtroom felt colder than the weather outside. The judge called for order. Ethan's attorney began with his performance, claiming I was being exploited by malicious outsiders. I let him finish. Then, when the judge nodded, I stood. "My name," I said clearly, "is Evelyn Carter. And I am not lost, confused, or manipulated. I am here because my son tried to erase me. You could have heard a pin drop." Andrew handed over the folder. The documents, the evaluations, the proof. The judge scanned each page, expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady. "This court will recess for review. We reconvene in 2 weeks." As we left the courtroom, Ethan reached for my arm. "Mom, please, you're making a mistake." I looked him in the eye, calm as a winter lake. "I made one a long time ago, thinking you still had a heart." I walked out, the echo of my steps louder than his words. 2 weeks can stretch like years when you're waiting for justice. In those days between hearings, I didn't rest. I couldn't. Every night I replayed the trial in my head. Ethan's trembling voice, the lawyer's rehearsed compassion, the judge's tired patience. I wasn't afraid anymore, just waiting for the truth to finally echo louder than his lies. When the day came, the sky hung heavy with clouds. The courthouse looked the same. Gray stone, worn steps, the faint smell of rain and old stories. Inside, the room felt smaller this time. Reporters lined the back rows. The air buzzed with curiosity. Ethan sat at the front, his perfect posture beginning to crack. His lawyer whispered furiously, flipping through papers that no longer mattered. Andrew leaned toward me. "Stay calm," he murmured. "Today's the day." The judge entered, files in hand. "We're here to resume the matter of Evelyn Carter's competency." Ethan's attorney stood first. "Your Honor, we maintain our position that Mrs. Carter has been manipulated by third parties." "Sit down," the judge said quietly. The man froze, then the judge turned to me. "Mrs. Carter, I've reviewed every document, every statement, and the independent psychiatric evaluation. You are, without question, of sound mind." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. My hands trembled. But not from fear, from release. He continued, "Furthermore, evidence suggests a long-term pattern of financial misconduct under your name, likely orchestrated by the petitioner, Mr. Ethan Carter." Ethan's head snapped up. "That's not true," he blurted, voice cracking. "She's lying." "Enough," the judge said. "This hearing is closed. Mrs. Carter's autonomy and financial rights are hereby restored in full." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then it broke. The rustle of papers. A gasp from somewhere behind us. The sound of my heart slowing after months of battle. I stood. "Thank you, Your Honor." As I walked past Ethan, I didn't look at him until he whispered, "Mom, please, I can fix this." I stopped just long enough to say, "You can't fix what you chose to break." Outside, the rain had started again, thin and cleansing. Reporters shouted questions, but I didn't answer. The only sound I wanted was the rain on the steps. Steady, real, unedited. That night I sat alone in my house, tea in hand, the news glowing on the TV. Evelyn Carter wins legal case against her son in landmark elder exploitation ruling. Federal. Authorities open investigation into fraud. Allegations. Ethan's face flashed across the screen. Leaving the courthouse, jaw tight, eyes empty, Andrew called soon after. "It's official," he said. "They've opened a case. Fraud, forgery, tax violations. He'll face them all." I didn't say anything. I just listened to the rain. 3 months later, I watched his mugshot appear online. Ethan Carter, 38, charged with multiple counts of financial fraud and elder abuse. His smile was gone. His suit replaced by a gray jumpsuit. The man who thought he owned everything now had nothing left but his own reflection in a jail mirror. When I hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. I walked outside, where the first snow had begun to fall, soft and pure. The air was cold, but it didn't bite anymore. It felt honest. In the following weeks, I started something new. With Andrew's help, I launched a small foundation, the Evelyn Project, a legal fund to protect seniors from family exploitation and financial control. We built a hotline, partnered with local law schools, and trained volunteers. I gave one interview, my first and last. Sitting before a single camera, no makeup, no script, I said, I was silenced once. But I learned something. When they take your voice, the only way to get it back is to use it for someone else. The clip went viral. Messages poured in from around the world. Stories of mothers, fathers, grandparents, all betrayed by people they loved. I read each one. Every story was a mirror. Months later, I received one last letter. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. "You were right, Mom. I lost myself long before I lost you." I'm sorry, I read it once. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in the fireplace. As the paper curled and darkened, I whispered, "I forgive you, but I'll never forget you." When the flames died, I made tea, pulled my shawl tighter, and sat by the window. The snow had covered everything. Clean, endless, quiet. I wasn't Evelyn Carter, the victim. I wasn't Margaret Lane, the alias. I was just me. A woman who had been erased, rewritten, and reborn. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of being alone. Because this time, I was free.